Well, hello and welcome to the inaugural podcast of Chili Has a Zoom Room. I have no idea how many of these there will be. Hopefully, there's going to be more if this goes well and this good response. But for today, for now, we're starting with an interview that I'm already very excited about, namely because this person wanted to do an interview with me, and who the hell would want to do an interview with me? Well, the answer to that is the winner of Something Awful Survivor, Scum versus Town, SalTheBard. Sal, welcome. Bell ring. Ding. There we
Ding.
go.
Hi, Chili. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing well now that I've got something to do, and so thank you for that.
Yeah.
How are you and your family doing?
Oh man, we're doing great. Today Eddie slept in a little bit and was not a terror today. Took some good naps, and yeah, it's all when you have an 18-month-old
Yeah.
sleeping till 8:30 is about all you can really ask for.
That was one tragic thing is that like a couple of the mafia or the Something Awful parents didn't get the chance to really hook up this game. And I've got a daughter as well, and she is fortunately spending the night with Pop Pop and Juju, her grandparents. So I am free to do as I please. So it is the little things, isn't it?
Yeah, it would have been fun to get like the parents alliance together,
Mhm.
like you, me, P Mush, and I
Merc,
think
Merc. If
Merc.
yeah, if you didn't
Which
go,
I
yeah.
I didn't I've never really talked to Merck, but also deadbeat dad, while not like an actual parent, like watches his niece all the time. So
Mhm. Yeah,
we'll probably get into it when we talk about the merge, but that was
for
like
sure.
one thing that
Oh, that's cool.
we connected on there was like kind of the kid thing too. So
Awesome. Okay, well, for those who are tuning in, we're going to be talking pretty much about Sal's game, theory of how to play Survivor, all that good stuff. Just why not? So let me ask you. I just signed up for this kind of on a whim, not realizing what the experience was really like. The last time I played was in the spreadsheet days. So I know you probably have a better sense of it. So was there any trepidation signing up for like the game at all, knowing that it was going to be pretty involved?
no, because I played Awful Big Brother. So Awful Big Brother was the first forum game that I played, and that was in January of this year. So coincidentally, Kupo had also played in that.
Okay.
So when so I'll kind of talk about it when I talk about Kupo, but like a lot of her and I's interactions were
Hmm.
based off of our interactions in Awful Big Brother.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it was you were talking about how that was going to be a person you could sort of go to straight away because of the way she was sort of being
Hmm.
perceived over there. So that makes a lot of sense. So I guess that actually kind of brings me to that question of like when you saw people signing up as they were coming in, were the people that you really wanted to get into the game, and were the people you were hoping maybe to not see so much,
Without I
without naming
apologize.
any of the people that
Without
you don't want to see?
no. Without having the thread in front of me, I can't remember exactly um, who had like I saw sign up. When I saw Kupo sign up, I knew that she was somebody that I wanted to work with because in Awful Big Brother, Kupo has kind of a reputation of being like the strategic mastermind.
Mhm.
In Awful Big Brother, I remember telling Pac when she was talking to me, I was like, Jesus Christ, like talking to Kupo is like talking to an attorney. Like she's asking you questions that have nothing to do with the game, but like you know that that's not really the information that she's looking for. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, so it sounds like there was some excitement though about playing with her.
Yes, I
Okay.
was I was really excited to play with Kupo. Um, I had reached out to her pregame and I just said, hey, like I would really like to work with you. I know that in Awful Big Brother you didn't really get a chance to work with anybody, but I would really like to work with you.
Mhm.
And she didn't really respond or I think her response was basically like is kind of non-committal.
Sure,
It
that's
was like,
fair.
yeah, we'll see what happens, which is totally fair. I had also reached out to Boogie and I had pre-gamed a little bit with Boogie. Boogie and I have played a lot of Mafia together. So
Mm.
Boogie was somebody that I thought, like, hey, this is a person who's a known quantity to me. So I think like
Sure.
Boogie could be a good person to work with. So really, Kupo and Boogie were the two main ones, but then also Steak is somebody, he was also an Awful Big Brother, and him and I had worked together in Awful Big Brother. So when I knew that he had signed up for this,
Mhm.
I had reached out to him and I said, hey, look, I want to work with you, but I don't want people to just automatically assume that we're going to work together.
Sure.
So I said, if we're on opposite tribes, I want to be like really antagonistic to each other. And, so that people think that there's like some animosity there, which a lot of our sniping at each other pre-merge was because of that. But then I kind of stepped over. I kind of stepped over the line a little bit, and, kind of shot some nukes when I really shouldn't have shot nukes. But
okay, well, we can certainly cover the nukes when we get to them. So,
yeah.
So what it does sound like, though, is you picked a bunch of people to talk with, or of the people you talk with, everyone kind of made a deep run. So next time you're signing up for one of these games, if Sal approaches you, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Seems like those people generally, got pretty far in the game. Everyone made merge. Everyone made jury, right?
So MMT didn't actually post in the thread, but she had signed up. So I had no clue that she had even signed up.
Okay.
But if I had known that she had signed up, I definitely would have spoken with her pre-game as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so let me ask you this. I think if we all sort of look at the game that was played, I would almost say that at the final tribal council, the three people sitting there, Kupo could vacillate onto Scum or Town as far as who would put them wherever. Steak, in my mind, played maybe a more wild card game. I don't know if you could either ascribe it to Town or Scum. I don't see you having played a very scummy game. So when you found yourself on Scum, did that mean anything to you at all?
No, but it's funny. So can I kind of go back to Awful Big Brother real quick?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Because I feel like that Awful Big Brother, some of the stuff that happened in there kind of directly had some impact on this. So basically I won't rehash and go too deep, but I'll just give kind of the clip notes, is that I had worked very closely with Puck and Sniper, Sniper was one of the mods for this game. And then Steak and I. So the four of us had kind of an alliance together. What I didn't realize was that Puck also had a second alliance that none of us knew about and that they had kept totally secret. And so when it got down to the final 7, he basically was allied with all 7 of, or all 6 of us.
Gotcha.
And pretty much all 6 of us thought Puck was our closest ally. And so then when Puck like made the big reveal that like, oh, I've just been using you guys, I was like legit really hurt, because I felt like that I had this really close friendship with Puck. And it like, so when I came into this game, I sort of wanted to emulate Puck's game a little bit, where I wanted to have alliances and sub-alliances, and I wanted to
onion alliances.
Yeah. So that was kind of going in. So when I got put on Scum, it didn't really bother me too much, especially because I had Amnestar, Boogie, and Kupo there, which were 3 people I really wanted to work with.
Sure. So yeah, when you proverbially hit the beach, you didn't feel like you had a whole lot of work to do. I mean, MMT was on the other side, but you did have people who were like, oh yeah, I wanted to work with these people. So right away, how quickly, if I'm thinking kind of about how the swap ended up happening, when that happened, did it make perfect sense to you? Like, yes, those people obviously went this way and we stayed here. Did that, like, had you developed an alliance with those 4 and it just made sense?
Yes, and also Zesty was so because there was 8 people at the start, we wanted a group of 5 so that we controlled the vote.
That's what we did as well on Town. Yep.
Yeah. So we had the Scum 4, which was myself, Kupo, Boogie, and Amnestar, and then we also had Zesty as our 5th. I think if Amnestar could have not sent Zesty over, he wouldn't have. And so the people that sent over were basically the people, P-Mush, Sandwolf, and Zesty. P-Mush and Sandwolf weren't really aligned with any of us. So it made perfect sense to send them over there.
Sure. Okay, so actually that sort of raises a question too, and I know we have a whole lot of ground to cover, but an interesting thing happened, at least, I don't have a whole lot to talk about in terms of games. I was only there for 3 cycles, but one thing that I did notice was that I reached out to everybody just to say hi, just to do that. And every single person I talked to, with the exception of like 2, were really surprised that nobody was talking to them. and it seemed like nobody was actually doing much in the way of proactive, just like saying hi, at least on town, if that makes
Oh,
sense. So like everyone seemed like, why isn't anybody talking strategy with me? I'm like, because everyone is waiting for people to talk strategy with them, and maybe you should go ahead and do that. So was that similar to how things were going on Scum? Like when you first
oh,
started, were you talking to everybody? Was everybody talking to everybody?
yes, everybody was talking to everybody.
Hmm,
By the end of the first night, I was in like 3 different alliances and had like a couple final fours with like different groups
gotcha.
of people, which actually, so one of the interesting things that happened on the first day was Zesty just like really opened up to me, really gave me a lot of like actionable intelligence. And um like for example, I had told Zesty, I was like, hey, I'd really like to work with you. And Zesty was like, oh, okay. Well, so then when we were putting the initial Scum alliance together, Boogie had reached out to Zesty and had said, hey, like, would you like to be in an alliance with us? And so then Zesty messaged me and said, like, hey, Boogie just
Hmm,
asked me about being in an alliance. Is that the same one that you're talking about, or is that something totally different? And I was like, oh, no, that's the same one. And kind of starting at that point, I was like, okay, wow, that's like real actionable intelligence that that Zesty is reporting back to me. Because like, say it wasn't, then I would
sure.
know, like, oh, hey, there's like stuff going on. So that I really appreciated Zesty for that. And then Zesty later told me that there was an alliance. It was like Zesty, Spoonsy, Kupo, P-Mush, and maybe Sandwolf, something like that.
Hmm. Okay,
And
so
so,
yeah, it's clear that things were happening. Like, right.
yes, yeah,
Okay, that's cool.
yeah. And then I had taken what uh, Zesty had told me about that Alliance of Five, and I had went to go copy and paste it into my confessional
Uh-oh.
to talk about it, but I accidentally
Yeah.
copy and pasted it into the Scum main chat, panicked, and then deleted it. But Pimush had already seen it at that point.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you remember in the main thread, there was like a point where Pimush went and called out Spoonsy and was like, oh, Spoonsy leaked a secret alliance like the second it was formed. That was what she was
Right.
talking about, is she thought that Spoonsy had leaked that to me and not Zesty. But
Gotcha.
um that
Yeah.
was, and then, and so I think that too was honestly kind of the start of like P Mushes and I kind of like adversarial
Hmm.
relationship that we had throughout the course of the game.
Sure. I think it's hard to win one of these games without having some kind of an adversarial relationship, and it almost might be good to sort of concentrate all of that onto one person because that's just one vote you're not getting, as long as you're not pissing off everybody.
Yeah, I almost sort of agree with you. Just the thing that the kind of person that I am, I don't really like that. And
Hmm.
so there was a lot of times where like P Mush would say something and I would just tell myself like, don't engage, like don't engage.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of times that I ended up biting my tongue. And for the record, P Mush and I are fantastic now. We talked after the game. We both realized like we probably should have worked with each other instead, because we ended up playing very similar games.
Well,
So
everybody gets to play shoulda, coulda, woulda, except for you. You did win, so whatever you did worked. So there is that to consider.
yeah.
But yeah. So let's move along though to something that certainly strikes close to home and was a very sad moment for me. The swap happens. Suddenly you're stuck with myself, Constant, and MMT. I can't imagine that felt terrible to you though. Was that like?
When MMT messaged me, she messaged me like pretty quick after the merge happened, or the swap happened. I don't. It was probably within probably a couple of minutes,
Mhm.
but I was really excited when she came there, and then so I had basically told her like at that point I had told her, I said, whatever I have to do to get you through the merge, like I'm gonna do. I'm we're friends, and whatever I have to do to help get you through the merge, I'm gonna do.
Gotcha. Okay, so you had one person come over who you didn't necessarily feel indebted to, but you really wanted to work with them. And then you also had two pretty unknown quantities in both myself and Constant. So how does SalTheBard handle it when two new people show up in a swap? I mean, there's like the Tyson approach of like, hey, we're a whole new team. There's, there's the antagonistic like Rob approach of like, screw you guys. Like, what is your mindset of like two people who show up who are clearly on the bottom, and what are you supposed to do with them?
So MMT had told me that she had a good relationship with you. So because of that, I instantly felt like more comfortable talking to you. And, you and I had a pretty lengthy conversation. I don't remember if it was the first or second night,
I think it was it was the second one because Constant needed some time to fuck me over real good.
Yes. So the funny part about our conversation that I had completely forgotten about was me telling you that I had the idol for Scum.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew that.
Okay, so we should sort of recapitulate that whole thing. So I came over with an idol, and my intention, just real quick boiled down, was to essentially become a vote vacuum, play the idol, and blindside one of you guys. I was thinking most likely Amnestar, because why not take out the leader? And I didn't know anything else. That's what I wanted to do. I told Constant, and his thought was, great, I'm going to go tell the Scum and screw Chili over. Okay, fine. That's a fine thing to do, and I'm not pissed about it. It's just what he did. So that happened, and what was, because you saw that all happen. So what was your whole response to like that type of tactic?
So that it concerned me when Khan just threw both of you under the bus within like minutes of getting there. I mean, Khan, I don't know if Khan knew how close MMT and I are, sure, but Khan pretty much told me my $1 million prize is to have her voted out before me. And so he had a very narrow focus on getting out MMT. And so he brought together basically the Scum 4 and was like, look, I want you guys to get rid of MMT. And for me, that was kind of a no-go.
Sure.
I had talked to Kupo about it because Kupo and MMT also have a very lengthy history with each other through these games. Mm-hmm. They were Kupo and MMT and Para, one of the other mods that ran this game. The three of them were like a really strong women's alliance in Awful Big Brother 2.
Sure.
So they have a lot of history together. So I had actually, in hindsight, this is very funny, but I had actually told Kupo, I said, hey, like, what do you think about working with MMT? Like you, me, and her, like the three of us working together. And, Kupo was very non-committal about that, but I'm assuming only because her and Shelly, I'm assuming that was because her and MMT already had their alliance and were like, okay, sure, we've got the werewolves, like, let's run this shit.
Mm-hmm. Fair. Okay, so it did put you off, though, that sort of the thing that Khan did, and from there, and so I guess I am curious then, what inspired you to be free with the information with me in that position, where it was a lopsided thing when you approached me, telling me that Khan had sold me out, right? But why tell me about the idol?
So I was really wanting, at that point, I was kind of like, okay, well, Chili and MMT are cool. Like anything I can do to help MMT out, I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. So I think that I had talked to you about, I reread our interaction last night because when I watched your video, there was like something that you had mentioned that I'd completely forgotten about, where I was like, well, here's a deal that I'm going to propose where it's going to be like all of us, you, like the Scum 4, MMT, and you vote for Khan.
Yeah, it was going to be 6-1 for Khan, and we all keep our idols. That was the idea.
Yes. Yeah, idol. Yeah, because I was trying to, I lied to you about having my team's idol.
Okay.
And I was trying to be like, I want to avoid idol-geddon if possible. And then as we started talking, kind of game related, it shifted to a little more like get to know each other. And mm-hmm. At that point I was like, oh man, like I really did want to keep you around. I can't remember exactly what the resistance was to voting Khan out first and then you, But I think that, Amnestar had kind of wanted to work with Khan, and I had kind of wanted to work with MMT, and your name just never came up as like,
Sure.
uh, please don't take any offense to that. It was
None. No,
just
it's a game.
your name had just never come up. So then it was just one of those things where it's like, I want to work with Khan, I want to work with MMT. Like
Sure.
Chili's kind of the
That's it, right? I mean, and
odd
I
person out.
also had the idol, so why wouldn't you want to put votes potentially there to at least flush it and then put a minority somewhere else? But
Yeah,
I'm the natural person there, so that makes sense.
yeah. And then when it just sort of like came down to it, it was going to be you or her, and then I started getting like really concerned about her going home at that point, because it
Sure.
was either going to be you or her. I was worried you were going to play the idol and then MMT was going to go, because people just didn't want to vote for Khan at that point, because
Mhm.
we had seen that he was open to working with us and everything. And so I actually, at one point, I had messaged MMT. This was, I said, hey, MMT, like, your only hope of staying is to convince Chili not to use his idol.
Hmm.
You need to tell him that he's safe. You need to tell him that he's safe,
Right.
so that he doesn't play his idol, so that he goes. I mean, I feel terrible saying that to you now, but I mean,
No,
like,
that ended up playing exactly into how I wanted it to play, because as we all know, I surrendered my idol to MMT and took the vote, so it ended up
yeah,
working out just fine. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so it's all good, and it certainly never even water under the bridge. The whole thing made sense from top to bottom. I was just happy that you were talking to me at that point,
mm-hmm.
so it's all good.
Well,
Um,
that's and that's also something in Awful Big Brother. When so the end was, the final six was me and Sniper, like I said, one of the mods for this game, and then it was Pac and three other people, and the other three people that were left, I really didn't have much of a relationship with.
mhm.
Sniper, when it became clear that Sniper was going home in Awful Big Brother, he just sort of checked out of the game, which I 100% do not blame him for. So it came down to the final five, and it was just like me and these other people, and nobody like talked game with me except for Pac, and it was so supremely frustrating, because I was trying to do everything that I could to stay in Awful Big Brother, to just get to four, get to three,
Right.
whatever. Um, and so I know from personal experience how frustrating it is to be in a minority situation like that, and nobody from the majority is reaching out to you. So at a minimum, I just wanted to like reach out and say hi to you,
Sure.
because who knows? It's a crazy game. Like, you may stick around, and then me saying hi to you and talking to you for like an hour one night later on down the road could end up paying huge
Oh, it
dividends.
absolutely secured your jury vote if I made it to jury, for sure. Like, that move alone was enough to just like, oh yeah, that's cool. I'm really happy that you did that and you didn't have to, and it speaks to your character. That's a vote. Like, someone else could still win it from you, but that's a huge point. So I think, it's one of the lessons too. I think just be kind to everyone as much as you can, because they could control your fate at some point.
I would say too that one of the other important lessons is to never shut a door.
Mm-hmm.
Always leave it cracked. Like, even if you don't intend to walk into that door, like, leave it cracked, because I think that, again, with like P-Mush, that door was shut with her. Whereas I think if there had been a crack in that door, we maybe could have talked, hashed things out, and realized like, oh, we have very separate goals, or excuse me, we have very similar goals,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we could like work together and not have it be so adversarial. But
Sure.
um, yeah, I think it's important to just touch base with everybody, say hi to everybody. Khan, I really didn't, because of like the way that he just kind of was like,
Yeah.
here's what's going on.
Yeah, you didn't have a whole lot of respect for that style, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So let's keep moving through the whole arc of the game here. The next big, crazy, interesting thing that happened, I would say, would probably be the big old combined tribal.
Hmm.
And so when you found out that that was happening, what was your kind of reaction to all that?
Actually, what's really interesting about the combined tribal, it was kind of the like maybe half hour before it happened, which was, so Kupo had won immunity. MMT had mutinied back over to town. So that really left the four of us and um, Deadbeat Dad, DBD. So, and DBD had been very clear with us that he had something and was not going to be going home. So, pretty much our plan at that point was we knew we were going to have to vote for one of the four. So, in hindsight, I probably this should have been something that like I really should have included in that I was at the bottom of my own alliance. But like Anastar just reaches out to me and says, "Hey, we're voting out Boogie," and Boogie had our hidden immunity idol, so I really didn't want Boogie to go. So I reached out to Kupo at that point, and I was like, "We need to vote out Amnestar," and just he wants to vote out Boogie. Boogie's got our idol, et cetera, et cetera. Also, according to Boogie, he couldn't give away the idol, and
Just a
I don't.
lie.
I have never been able to figure that out, but
It's a lie. I gave mine away.
no.
So.
I know, but I don't know if Boogie didn't know he could give
uh,
the idol away, or if he just
Boogie,
said it.
okay, so I have a little bit of a history with Boogie, and that I know he's a writer in Thunderdome, and he's a good writer. He's smart. He knew, and it's not honestly a bad strategy to claim deniability on that, like that you don't know
No,
that you can.
no,
But
no, I didn't.
yeah, it's a good move. But like, yeah, he absolutely he knew. And Boogie, if you're watching this, like, you could let us know if you knew, but you knew. we know you knew. At least I know
So
you knew.
what actually ended up being funny about that was that same night, I just said, "Hey Boogie, can you ask Cena if you can give the idol away?" Or maybe that had happened the con vote. Regardless, since I knew that you had given it to MMT, and as far as I know, and I do also want to say, a lot of what I will say was my perspective of the
Sure.
game as it was happening. Reality of the
Of
game
course. It's a game
was
about perspective and perception. So, yeah.
so. As far as I knew, Kupo, Amni, and Boogie did not know that MMT had your idol.
Mm-hmm.
They had assumed that you felt safe and you just didn't play it, and that we voted out the idol.
That's what I was hoping. That's what I wanted the message to
Mm-hmm.
be. So that's good.
So, um, so I had told Boogie like, "Hey, can you like just verify with Cena that you can't give the idol away?" Because I wanted to make sure that like Shelly wasn't.
Right.
I wanted to make sure that MMT wasn't lying to me. So, anyways, sorry, I'm off track there.
That's
But
okay.
so when Kupo and I had talked about voting out Amnestar at that point, I reached out to Amnestar and I said, "Hey, look, man, like I hope it doesn't come to this, but I don't want to vote out Boogie because I don't want that idol gone. So if it's you, it's you. I'm sorry. If it's me, like whatever, we're still cool." And what I had no idea was how close I actually was to going home that night, because had push come to shove, like Kupo didn't want to force a tie. So if if Boogie and Amnestar are voting for me, she's voting for me. Like she did not want the tie to happen. Just
Right.
totally understandable. So then we got there and it was the combined tribal, and it was just insane. That was like a really, really long, really intense night.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Jivjov went home, that was just like, we were like, "Whoa, we did it! We did it!"
So that's good. So it would what that's the combined tribal had a real chance for there to be a favorable outcome for you guys, but then, oh no, we can't trust each other because we've all shown each other how dark we are. But that's not what happened. It was you really did feel good about making it, and no one had really flipped or turned on each other in a negative kind of way. So makes sense. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I had talked to Amnestar a lot about like how we were like Matsing from Survivor,
Mm-hmm.
how they went to like all those tribals, but like
Yeah,
Malcolm and Denise had
Malcolm and
that like
Denise for sure.
alliance that was like forged in fire. I felt like the four of us, because we had gone to so many tribals and we knew, like, I knew that, you know, like Kupo, I could trust Kupo. I knew I could
Sure.
trust Boogie. I knew I could trust Amnestar. So I felt like that those four, or those three, us four, were just super
Mm-hmm.
tight. And so when it came to that combined tribal, I didn't, you know, when they said vote Jiv, that was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So the merge happens, and for sort of jumping ahead a little bit, the merge happens, and how are you feeling position wise once the merge happens?
I was feeling great. MMT came back and she had her advantage, her mutiny advantage. You know, Steak had made it back over, so I was really excited that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that Steak had made it back over. Zesty had made it back over, so I was really excited to see Zesty again. Because, like I said, at this point in time, my perception was Zesty was somebody that I could really trust. So the Scum Four instantly pulled Zesty back in. We pulled MMT and Steak, so essentially an alliance of seven
Seven, right?
at that point. The plan was to cut Zesty first at 7, Steak at 6, MMT at 5, and then it would be us four at
Right.
the end.
Okay.
So that was the initial plan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at some point,
So where did it all go wrong?
so at some point, Steak had, um, sorry, so Steak had mentioned, you know, like, I'd like to vote Zesty out. I guess that they had had some interaction on Town Tribe that I wasn't really privy to. Don't really know much, but I just know that Steak was just like, I don't really trust Zesty. At the same time, Kupo and I had a conversation because in Awful Big Brother, I talked about this a lot, about how there were so many red flags in that game, that there was stuff going on, that there was like a second alliance that I didn't know about, because I just felt like everything that happened was too easy. Like, you know, we had every vote went in Awful Big Brother, every vote went my way. You know, my alliance always won. Head of household, even when my alliance didn't win head of household, we were able to control like the nominations and whatever. So um coming into this game, like, red flags were something that I was really paying attention to. And so obviously not close enough, but you know, so I started talking to Kupo about like red flags, and I was just like, I just feel like this is too easy. Like, this is too easy. Like, what's the red flag that I'm missing?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, your red flag is Zesty. And I was like, no, not Zesty, not Zesty. And then she pretty much swore me to secrecy, and then was like, Zesty's getting a counter alliance and is trying to vote out Amnestar. So I started doing the numbers in my head, and I was like, okay, like, well, where are all these votes coming from? Because, you
Right.
know, there's 7 of us. So even if you take Zesty away, there's still 6 of us, which would just leave there 4. So I was trying to figure out like where all these extra votes were coming from. And then I realized, like, okay, yeah, it's probably Kupo. And then, of course, as we know, Zesty had the vote doubler. So there was actually a total of 11 votes that were cast that night. But thankfully, you know, like, our side was able to stay strong and, you know, get rid of Zesty. So that was like the first time where something didn't necessarily go my way.
Yeah.
And that was like the first kind of like crack. But, you know, at the time it was like, okay, whatever. That's like a very minor, that's not really anything that I'm worried about.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
The red flags were all over the place, and I was still just not seeing them.
Well, you were made privy to them at least a little bit, but like, I mean, and this is where it gets kind of hard. I think that the vista and how some people were trying to shape the perception of you was that you didn't really know what was going on. To some extent, we can say that Kupo might have had the best head for like what was actually happening for the whole game. Whether or not that matters remains to be seen, because you won. So, and that's a big part of the game, is winning it and finding a way to win it. So how much do you value having that kind of agency versus like being a player who, when you get to the end, maybe you don't have so much crap on your hands?
So that's an excellent question. Thank you. I talked about this in my confessional quite a bit, was how in Awful Big Brother, I never really had agency because I never won head of household. It was either I vote this person or this person. My choice was always binary. Whereas in this game, I felt, especially early on, that I did have a lot of agency in the game. And that kind of whittled away as as like tribals went and things didn't. I felt like I had less agency in the game as it went on, but at this point I was still feeling really damn good and feeling really, really on top of things.
Mm-hmm. So I think, sort of in the middle of the game, if we're thinking about like if there's like a positive spectrum of agency, it's also like on the other end of that positive spectrum of like where a player is, like how much are you in control and how much is your name being brought up? How much was your name really being brought up throughout this game? Like or what was your perception of like how much your name was being brought up?
So during the combined tribal, I did get a couple votes. I think I got 2 votes. I think it was like Zesty and Steak or something like that had. I was gonna say something looked like something happened with your camera, but
we're okay.
Okay,
it recovered.
So I felt like that because I had been so good about talking to people and connecting with people that I was that I was very low on people's priorities as far as, I want to target this person. I want to target this person. I felt pretty confident that my name was not being brought up at all.
Mm-hmm. So
although
your threat level, you were managing it basically.
Yeah. Also during this time, it was funny because State kept telling me about what a threat Annie was. And I was like, no, I'm the threat. I'm the threat.
Okay, so this, I mean, I'm happy to hear you say it, and I don't think you're one to do any excessive horn tooting, Jesus Christ, horn tooting. But that to me was like the essence of your game and why I thought you were able to win and should have won, because no one really saw that coming. I don't think that Kupo or Steak thought for a second going into Final Tribal that you had a chance. And I think that absolutely was part of what won it for you.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Kupo, like if you are watching this, please do not, take offense to this. But when I read her confessionals, basically the reason that the Final Four Tribal, like in my opinion, in my perspective, the reason that the Final Four Tribal went the way it did was that Kupo had stayed loyal to me because I was loyal to her. Mm-hmm. And that was my perception of it. But in reality, it was, I don't think I can beat MMT. I think I can whoop the shit out of Sal. So
I don't think you're telling Kupo anything Kupo doesn't already know.
Yeah.
She's been pretty clear about it up front. Like that the goat was not the goat. It was I think that lesson has been learned by all. And I guess we'll jump ahead and jump back a little, but that was another thing as someone in the viewer vista. There was really, and I'll confess to this too, you would have had my vote. I didn't see you winning because I was reading the narratives of so many people left. But I wasn't reading as much, and the people in Ponderosa were being pretty good about keeping like their opinions pretty locked up. So, but just paying attention to the people who were still there, their confessionals, and what was going on, it really seemed like you didn't have a chance. I think the only one who really was calling it, I think, was Pac from like a while ago. I said like, nope, Sal's got this. He's gonna win. And I said, yeah, you get my vote, but I don't see it. But it's to me, that made it even more special. It was more fun that way.
Yeah. We'll get to like my feelings on my chances to win, because like at this point I felt like I was like, if I get to 3, I was like, I feel like I have a really good chance of winning at this point. Like, so at this point I was like, I was way up here.
We're about to run into some Fabio moments post tribal where we're not really sure what's going on with things. So let's talk about some of these between the Steak flip and the MMT flip. So just talk to me about what these votes kind of look like.
So basically the immunity after that was the coconut chop, and I was very clear on the fact that we should let MMT or Steak win the coconut chop. That's just kind of, I just felt like that was good strategy. Like, let's give them immunity so that they must know they're on the bottom. By this point, I had like a little threesome with those three that we were talking about potentially flipping on the Scum group at 6. But so I was really adamant, like, let's give MMT or Steak immunity here, just so that they are, or I guess we had given Steak immunity the week before because we had the auction and Boogie had the idol that he could, or the immunity he could give to another person. He gave that to Steak. So we were like, okay, now it's MMT's turn. Which, to be clear, I think that MMT would have won that regardless. But when you have a large alliance, that coconut chop is really easy to game.
Yeah.
So the DBD vote was that one. I felt very bad for DBD. I had pretty much told him, like, going into that, like, we have a nullifier. We're going to use it against you. Like, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. And I was very forthright with him. And I was actually trying to get him to give
the idol.
Give the idol to MMT, which I hadn't really thought about how funny that would be if that had happened to her twice in the same game. Until just now. But I mean, I knew that more than likely he wasn't going to, but I just kind of wanted to, like, throw it out there, see what happens.
Yeah, I get it.
So it was, the next tribal was where Steak had flipped. So at that point we had 7 left. Spokes, P-Mush, Steak. Yeah, we had 7. I guess it's 8. We would have had 8 left at that point. Hold on.
Okay. I think so.
10, 9, 8. Yeah, we had 8 left. Okay. So, we were still feeling really good about cruise controlling to, 6. And that was also the week where I think that we had like 3 eliminations in 1 week or something. So it was already like that was like the start of a really stressful week. So the DBD vote had went fine, and we went to the next challenge, and Kupo had won that, and so we were pretty much like, we had a vote split set up where it was going to be like 4 votes on Mush, 3 votes on Spokes, and then I think that was going to leave. We were planning for 3 votes on Amnestar. I can't. I'm sorry. I don't really remember the exact breakdown of the votes. But so then, prior to that tribal, Amnestar had reached out to Spokes and had convinced Spokes to just vote for P-Mush just directly, so that we could get P-Mush out of there. Which Steak didn't know, and so then when it came time to play the idol, he idled. He saved P-Mush. The revote happened, and then it was kind of like a Tyson from Heroes vs. Villains, where like Spokes unfortunately voted himself out. So that was like the first time where I was really, I'm a very emotional person, and as I'm sure that you probably saw in the Vista, I am embarrassed. I was really embarrassed reading the Vista, just how often I was like losing my temper down this stretch. And so it has become something that I really want to work on, and just for myself is being able to control that.
Well, look, it's good to hear that you're owning your flaws and you want to work on them. That's not a bad thing. So good for you.
But I mean, I had told Steak, I was like, look, man, like before that tribal, even I think I had said something to Steak along the lines of like, you got to play Survivor. Like you can't just do what I tell you. Like you got to play Survivor, man. Like have fun. And then, then it was kind of ironic where it's like he plays Survivor, and I'm like, no, not like that. You can't play Survivor like that. Mainly, Steak and I are fine as well, but I think that the thing that I was most upset about was just that Steak didn't like let me know it was going to happen.
Sure.
had he let me know it was going to happen, I think, because I was trying to think of ways for me, MMT, and Stake to get to the end, and so losing Amnestar or losing Boogie at that point wouldn't have necessarily been the end of the world for me. It was just more that I didn't know it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
No, being blindsided, regardless of the consequences, it stings, right? It's not, yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that is kind of what, that kind of really hurt Stake and I's relationship, because Stake kind of correctly sussed out at that point that I really had no intention of flipping, which I don't really know. I mean, like I said, it's kind of hard. It was, a it was just like something that we talked about, so we didn't really know if it was gonna happen or not. But um, then we did the slide puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
or the word search after that, and so we were pretty much like, okay, as long as P-Mush or Stake doesn't win immunity, like, Stake is going home. Like, we're gonna,
Yeah.
he had a chance to work with us. And so, and then so right before that tribal, somebody had posted in. We had a chat that was called like the Real Swans.
Yeah.
So we had Swan Station chat, which I'm a big Lost fan, so I had like created this Lost themed chat room. It's called like the Swan Station group, that was the Scum for MMT and Stake. After Stake had flipped, we created a new channel that was like
naturally.
it was called the Real Swans. So I think in the Swans chat, somebody had said something about like how this was like a big happy group. And so I messaged MMT and I was like, does it have to be a big happy group? Like, why don't you, me, Stake, and Mush vote out Amnestar? And she was like, you should talk to Stake about that. Or she said, let me talk to Stake about that. And I said, okay. And then she, a couple minutes later, like, was like, oh yeah, I talked to Stake, you should talk to him. So I talked to Stake and I proposed to him. I said, like, look, like, this is what we should do. Part of what I was trying to do was, if Stake had an idol, I was trying to lull him into like a false sense of security. Again,
Sure.
This was all from my perspective. I was trying to kind of lull him into a false sense of security so that he may not play his idol, so that we could vote him out. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that like that was a strategic mastermind move, because I thought that there was like about a 5% chance of it actually working, and obviously it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But what had happened was then MMT really did flip at that point, and I was totally blindsided by that. And I was like really upset, where I was just like, MMT, I told you I wanted to do what you did. Like, why couldn't you have said, funny you should say that, that's what we're actually going to do? And then I could have still voted the same way, obviously, because I wasn't necessarily like thrilled about getting blood on my hands.
Sure.
But I still could have voted the same way. Amnestar still would have gone home. I would have known about it, and everything would have been great.
Mm-hmm.
So then at that point we were down to 6. Yeah, we were down to 6 at that point, and this vote and the next vote were pretty much my 2 like low points of the game.
I'm sure.
Because it was like Spokes, we were okay with Spokes or Mush going home. So like the Spokes elimination, that one didn't really like, it was frustrating, but it wasn't really like the end of the world. Whereas like the Amnestar elimination, that one was where I was like, oh my god, like everything is going wrong. This perfect idea that I had, this like dream that I had of the 6 of us, was just like, crumbling right in front of me. And it was tough.
At that point, did you feel like you had an actual path to
no.
Okay.
No. I would probably have to go back and check my confessionals, but I'm pretty sure this was the point where I said, well, any strategy that I had any claim that I had where I could say I played a good game, or that like my alliance ran things till the end. I can't say that anymore. So that was kind of a big blow, and that was where I really was like, oh, God, I really do not have any chance of winning this.
I think that the interesting thing is, did you stop and think, why would people want to vote me out though?
So,
because that's the confluence, right? Like you can be hard to find your way to the end, but you also have to ask yourself, well, where am I a target even? And did you feel like one?
So apologies if I didn't, your last question in this one are kind of, so I felt that there was like a chance that I would at least make it to 4, but my view on it was that I was going to be dragged to 4 instead of earning 4 on my own. And that was the thing that was like the hardest for me, was, feeling that it wasn't my actions, but, I felt that I had like a good enough relationship with more or less everybody that I at least had a shot at getting to 4. But also, like I said, I was also concerned about the way that I was getting there.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Okay, so just wanted to get clarification, because I was curious about that.
Does that
it does? Yeah, no, it does, because I think no one wants to vote for a player who's been dragged along, but that it's simply it wasn't the perception of the jury, so just something to be paying attention to, for sure. So the Amistar and Boogie votes certainly were a low point, and that makes a lot of sense. So
then prior to the Boogie vote, so we had the slide puzzle that Mush won that, and so it was pretty much like Kupo, Boogie, and I were like, we're voting Steak. Like, that's the only thing that we can do. If he's got an idol, he's got an idol, but like, it's all that we can do. And so then, of course, we're worried about Mush, Steak, and MMT voting, having it go to a tie. And Kupo was like, I got this, guys. I got this. I've got a vote nullifier, so we can nullify someone's vote. It'll be 3-2. We're back in control. And then I was like, yes, like, all right, here we go. Like, this is what I wanted. And then MMT reached out to me, I was like, maybe an hour before Tribal, 30 minutes before Tribal, and was like, look, like, Mush is going to give up the immunity necklace to either me or Steak, whoever she thinks is the biggest risk of going home. Like, if she does that, I'm voting for Mush, and you guys should too. And I was like, don't have to tell me twice.
Right. Good plan.
I reached out to, like, this is how serious I was taking this, is that I did not post this in our Alliance chat because I was so worried about somebody from Viewers Vista. Like, not that I think that anybody would do it,
of course,
but I was so.
But it was so fragile.
Yes, I was so worried about somebody from the Vista like cluing Mush in, which obviously I know that this community wouldn't do that just for game integrity. But I mean, like, when you're in that situation, you're just like,
I get
it. So we came up with a very simple plan, which the plan was, we're going to vote Steak. If anything funny happens, we're going to vote P-Mush. And there was fist bumps emojis all around. Mm-hmm. Went into that vote feeling really damn good. It ended up so we had Tribal. Mush gave up the necklace, and then we went to vote. And so I was like, all right.
I think the quote was, "This defines something silly happening."
Yes. Right? Yeah. I was like, this is textbook, like, something silly happening.
I think that might have been one of like the best quotes of the season.
And so of course I sent my vote in for Mush. Kupo and Boogie did not. And then MMT, bless her heart, love her, but she just felt a lot of pressure having Mush's immunity necklace, and she felt that it would have been like a really shitty thing to vote her out, which I can empathize with the way that must have felt. So I am not holding any of that against her, but even still, if everything had gone as according to plan, Steak would have been gone. Kupo, Boogie, and I would have been on like a real high, and it would have been like, this is great. Except apparently in tribal, Kupo had said something like, "Are we doing the first name or the second name?" Steak had said, "Okay, well, obviously my name is the first name and Mush's is the second name." So I had kind of assumed that all of that was for theater, like that was,
Right.
that we were putting on this air that we didn't, that we were confused, that we didn't know what was going on, but that in reality it was going to be like, oh no, we had, Mush is gone. In fact, I had sent Boogie the Eric Reichenbach video where he gives up immunity in Fans vs. Favorites, and
Yep.
Boogie's like, "You can give up the immunity necklace?" And I was like, "Yes,
And generally
here's
it
why
doesn't go
nobody
well.
does it."
Right.
So that honestly was my absolute lowest point of the game when like Boogie got voted out, because I felt like at that point that I had lost Kupo as an ally. I was like, okay, well, obviously Kupo probably won't want to work with me at this point. You know, I didn't feel like I could trust MMT. Steak and P Mush were really tight and were, you know, uh, shit talking is not something that I find, like, just me personally, I just don't find it very attractive, and it's something that just really like gets me. And P Mush and Steak rightfully were talking a little shit, and that like really got to me. So that was going into July 4th weekend, and I was just like, I'm done. Like, I'm not, I'm just done. Like, I have no chance of winning this game after this big of a fuck up. Like, even if I get to 4. So at this point, I think I started telling everybody left that I wanted to go to Fire. I was like, look, don't take me to the final 3. Like, I want to make Fire. Like, give me a chance to at least, either get there on my own or whatever. Don't drag me there.
Sure.
So then we had the next vote where P Mush went, and that was probably the closest where I was going to go, because it was going to be Mush, Steak, and MMT voting for me, and then me and Kupo voting for Mush. But I had faith in MMT that if push came to shove, she wouldn't vote for me, and I think that I was right there. Then we had the final 5, and prior to that, the final 5. So it was me, Steak, Kupo, and MMT, and I had told Kupo, I said, like, the one person that can't win is Steak, because I don't want to have to decide between you and MMT. Like, that'd be terrible. So I went through some of the other forum scavenger hunt games that we had done, and I had like collated. I gave her all the clues. I gave her all the answers. I said, like, hey, if you want to practice, we should practice, because I've been on SA for like 15 years. Like, I know these forums, and so we came to that challenge, and it came down to basically like Steak and Steak ended up winning. And at that point, I kind of went a little like crazy, and I started telling Kupo, like, hey, you guys should just vote me out. Like, you should just vote me out. Like, I messaged MNT, I said, like, just vote for me tonight. Like, because at that point I was just like, I can't win. Like, Kupo's played an amazing game, Steak has played a very flashy game. Like, I just didn't feel like I could win, so I was just ready to kind of go.
Makes sense. Yeah.
What I didn't realize at the time was that, and again, my perspective when MMT actually went, was that Kupo had not voted for me out of loyalty, where it was more, I think I can beat you.
Right.
So when we got through that final 4 vote and MMT went home, I felt really shitty about it. But it was just like, I just, it was just something that had to be done to get there. And
it was a necessary move.
Sometimes you gotta make them. It was a necessary move. so it can't coming into the final tribal. I kind of had two speeches that were written out. I had one that was just like, look, you guys, you're idiots if you don't vote for Kupo. Like, I don't deserve to win. Stake doesn't deserve to win. Like, Kupo is the one that deserves to win. And then I highlighted like all of Kupo's moves. And then as I was reading this, I was like, do I really want to like
Right.
torpedo myself? And I was like, no. So I ended up writing out the one that I ended up using. But even still then, it really kind of was up until the last minute where I was trying to decide like how much I wanted to advocate for myself, because I really, talking to people since it's been over has made me feel better about winning. But at the time, I just was like,
Yeah, you mentioned, I think,
really,
after you won that you needed to process. Like, I think there was probably a part of you that didn't feel like this was legitimate or something. That's what it felt like.
yeah. It was really tough for me to, like process like, oh my God. But when we went into final tribal, shortly before it, I had reached out to Kupo and I had told her, I said, look, I'm going to be advocating for myself. Like, I think you're cool. I have really enjoyed playing with you. Like, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here without you. I really feel like you deserve to win, but I am going to advocate for myself. And she had responded something along the lines of like, you're going to learn so much about the game that's going to blow your mind, or something like that. So I was kind of on edge. So, we did the opening speeches, and, I was like, okay, the three of us, the opening speech, I feel like was easy because I had a lot of time to work on it and to really
Sure.
craft it and to really set to feel like I set a narrative for myself. There was a paragraph about Kupo and I being a tight team that ended up being like a total lie, but whatever. Again, it was my perception at the time.
Sure.
So then when we came, sorry, I'm just going to pull up Final Tribal.
No, go
Sorry.
ahead.
When Zesty came out, and so Zesty was, from what I had found out later, was that Zesty actually asked to go first, or like campaigned to go first.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if Zesty campaigning to go first actually was to like help set up, for Zesty to set their narrative of what they thought of the winners. But it really ended up Zesty's post. Like, I ended up screenshotting that. I sent that to a friend of mine that had been like kind of tangentially following it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, when I read Zesty's post, I was just like, okay, Zesty was the first one out. They've been in Ponderosa
Talking to everybody.
I was like, okay, like, this is good for me. Like, all right. And then, so I felt pretty good. And Zesty didn't really have any questions or anything. And
Mm-hmm.
so then Deadbeat Dad went next, and he asked his question about The Wire, and I was just like, I've never watched this. I haven't.
But
I've only
you
watched
tried, and that was huge. He appreciate. I actually, because I was good friends with him. He talked about that. He was really pissed that, like, I think it was Steak didn't even give it a shot, and he's like, just give it a shot. Just Google it. He was very happy that you at least tried.
Yeah. So his question was, he asked the same question for all three of us. It was like, who would you?
Oh boy, did I lose you?
To that person, and bonus points if you can compare the other two to characters of The Wire. And I watched one season of The Wire, and it was like 10 years ago or something like that. So really the only character I remember is Omar, because, like, let's face it, like, everybody
knows Omar, sure.
But I 100% knew I was no Omar this game, so I didn't even want to like try to go that route. So I just Googled like, what Wire character are you? And I just took like a quick little like 2-minute like. Did you hear camera freeze?
It did. I'm still hearing you.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm making a funny little smirk. Why don't we do this? We'll break this up into two parts,
Okay.
and I'll call you right back.
Okay.